voter suppression tactic, a blueprint for disenfranchisement. In this article, I go through how Brian Kemp became governor. First off, he was the Secretary of State, and he purged hundreds of thousands of people from the voting rolls, many of them black, and then won that election by 54,000 votes against Stacey Abrams in 2018. He had purged over 500,000 people from the voting rolls. Greg Palast hired the company that runs, that verifies addresses for Amazon, and found that 334,000 out of those 534,000 people, mostly black, had neither died nor moved, but they had sure lost their right to vote. In 2020, when Stacey Abrams challenged him again, he purged another 309,000 voters. Again, Greg Palast hired that company and found that 198,351 of them should not have been removed from the polls. So, what's the latest trick? Well, this is getting weird. They say that they're purging the voting rolls in order to, quote, keep the voting rolls clean. Why does that count? Because people like, Brian Kemp in Georgia and Brad Raffensperger say that if people are registered in 2 states, they can vote in 2 states, and that's a bad thing. Well, people don't vote in 2 states. Louise and I have lived, we grew up in Michigan, we moved to New Hampshire, we moved to Germany, we moved to Georgia, we moved to Vermont, we moved to Oregon, we moved to Washington, D.C., and we moved back to Oregon, okay? In the last 50 years, that's what we've done. Not once have I notified a state that I left the state so that they could cancel my voter registration. Nobody does. So how do states know that people have moved? When your driver's license expires, they remove you from the voting rolls. It's real simple. Driver's licenses are typically 2, 3, or 5, 4 or 5 years. I mean, some of them max out at 5, but, and so when they expire, they just take your name off the rolls. Or if there's a death notice, if somebody dies, and the states get those death notices, and then they remove you from the voting roll. That's real simple. There is no problem. For a couple of years, I was no doubt registered as a voter both in Washington, D.C. and in Oregon, but I didn't fly back to D.C. to cast a second vote. Nobody does. So why are the Republicans so upset about this, so concerned about this? Because it's a good excuse to purge Democratic voters off the voting rolls. So this week, they rolled out a new website where you can delete your own voter registration. All you have to know is your name, address, social security number, driver's license number, or date of birth. And then for a full hour on Monday, they posted all 6 million Georgia voters' full names, addresses, date of birth, social security numbers, and driver's licenses on that site. So any Republican who wants to purge anybody else from the voting rolls can simply download that list and then go in and say, oh, I'm Joe Blow, who lives in that Democratic district, or I'm John Doe, who lives in there, or Jane Doe, whatever. I mean, this is their latest shtick. There's somebody on Twitter pointing out that in Texas, there's an online voter registration form, and at the very end, after you fill it all out, you click submit, and you think that you've registered to vote, right? In fact, what you did is the submit button actually it then says, okay, now here, print this out and sign it and bring it in along with your proof, right, to the Secretary of State's office. And people don't go that far. They don't see that. They think they've registered to vote when they haven't. So if you're in Texas, be very careful. But anyhow, this is what they're doing in Georgia. It's bizarre.